Hello, I'm Monickie Scott.
And this is your girl, Felina B. Flossin. Thank you for joining us as we support and encourage women in their five-star living journey. Today, we get to shine the five-star spotlight on managing partner of Black Box Consulting Group, Yindra Dixon.
Yes, Yindra, driven by her passion for equity and inclusion, Yindra strives to make a considerable impact in every community she is a part of. And in February 2020, she started MPower 360, a nonprofit focused on engaging and mobilizing Black voters in Nevada. Welcome to the Five Star Living Show, Yindra.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So in a few moments, we'll talk more about your journey. But first, let's talk five-star. So when you hear the words five-star living, what does that mean in your world, Yindra?
Well, I really think of it as the five things that have to be in balance in order for you to be a successful person. So that would be mind, body, spirit, family, and work. I am intentional about making sure that each one of those five is as well taken care of as possible. I wouldn't say I was always that way, but for sure now I value it. I understand the power of it and, really just the sense of balance that it brings to my life. And so even when there are crazy times like the pandemic, like anything else that can happen, it really has just been a way for me to go back to something that's easy to count on my five fingers and understand what's out of whack and what needs better help,
Absolutely. So what are some things that you do to bring balance into your life? Or how do you know when you're off balance or not in sync?
So I can answer both. I would say, the first thing is that I am very practical and realistic. I set my goals really, really high, and I absolutely know that I can achieve them. But I understand that when I get to certain hurdles, if it's not the right time for me to overcome them, then I don't try to. Okay. And sometimes you have to say no to things. And so really just setting those boundaries in your life so that you can keep those things in balance. You can't work 20 hours a day and expect for other things in your life to just figure themselves out. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's making sure that I set those specific boundaries with my family specifically, right? Like making sure I make time for the kids, that I do the things that I need to do with them. Also my husband, that we have our time together. I don't do every Zoom call with the video on. I don't take every meeting that I have to take. I schedule the day so that I can do the things that I need to do. I think also I started maybe 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I started just doing one thing every day that was self-care. So like I do a facial one day, or I take a bath one day, or I do my dry brushing one day, or whatever it was that I decided I wanted to do to make the best impact on me. And so that's the way that I kind of keep all those things in balance, really setting the boundaries for each one of those five stars.
Nice.
Awesome. And you were going to tell us too, when do you know? How do you know you're out of balance?
Yeah. So I don't have an addictive personality. I'm not a person. I have, smoked in my life and, been a drinker and all those things, but I've always had a lot of ability to have discipline and eventually just say no and stop doing it. And I know that that's not everybody's thing, but when I feel myself gravitating towards things that I know that are not good for me, like, oh my God, I need a glass of wine. Like that means something's out of balance because I don't normally need a glass of wine. There's nothing about wine that you need. It tastes delicious. You can enjoy it. But just like with anything else, it's in moderation. So I can tell for myself when those things, are out of balance. Similarly, it's like hormone spikes, right? As a woman around my menses, I have like cravings for chocolate or cravings for whatever. And so I recognize, what that is and where it's from. But at times when I know that I'm not having sort of hormonal changes and I all of a sudden am like, I have to have a cupcake. Mm-hmm. Something's wrong, right? I'm not normally having a cupcake.
Yeah. Good point. Those are very great analogies.
Very good points. Thank you for giving our listeners a little insight on how you are living a 5-star life. Now, let's get to the journey. Tell us a little bit about your company or the organization's mission, MPower 360.
Yeah. So MPower 360 is primarily focused on educating and engaging voters so that they can make the most impact in their lives. So the one thing that you can do that's really simple, that truly has the most power that you're given as really a resident or a citizen of this country, is the right to vote.
Yes.
But people are afraid of it. It's intimidating. There's a lot of different candidates that you need to know. But it is absolutely important. There's really nothing about your life that isn't controlled by somebody that you help to elect. And so it is my point and my practice to educate people as much as possible around that. And then to do the things that I know exist to remove the barriers for them to do that. So that requires advocating for voting access, making sure that people can vote however they want to, whenever they want to, not whenever, but, within reason, providing the most flexibility and the most access, because there are all kinds of things that can keep you from voting. And the positions that we vote for really do have a huge impact over our lives. So we vote in Nevada for judges who are in traffic court. How many of us have had to get a traffic ticket and go to traffic court? And you can actually determine the person who's going to make those decisions. So if you've had some times when the outcome hasn't been favorable, you have an opportunity to change that right away. Other people like the district attorney, that's the person who decides whether or not to charge somebody with a crime. Also, even our legislators who have, control over how many hospitals we're going to build or how many schools we're going to build and how we're going to invest in the ways that I want to educate my children, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really super impactful. The power of voting, we have made it extremely easy here in Nevada. And so the mission of the organization is to make sure that people are engaged in that process and in all the ways that they can impact their right to vote, as well as the elected leaders, that we put into place.
Awesome. And how were you led to do this type of work? What was?
Yeah. So I love that you asked me that question, because people are always like, wow, you do this great stuff. And I say, I was called to the work. And part of it is because, I'm a person who is solution focused. And so when I see problems, I really just try to solve them. I just have an operational minded, like an efficiency brain. And when I moved back to Nevada in July of 2019 and kind of surveyed the situation, I really thought about being able to solve, some of the issues that arise, for us. And a lot of that is trying to ensure that the most people of color and Black people specifically are getting out to vote, right? Like what's keeping them from voting, all of these things. So I feel like I was called to the work in that way. I had a lot of people along the way who encouraged me. Back in 2009, I started my consulting company, Black Box Consulting Group. We did the African American statewide outreach for Senator Reid in 2010. And so, at the time, my business partner, who was a social worker, really brought the social work aspect to the advocacy and sort of the operationalizing of things like social justice. And so I really feel like it's that. And then I think as I watch the world develop and I see how my children are perceiving the world or understand the world, it just becomes really imperative for me to make sure that I move the barriers, to their freedom out of the way as much as possible. And so that's really how I ended up starting the company in 2020 and really being hyper successful during a pandemic, at a time when the tools that we typically use to engage people were not available to us. Like with anything, even this conversation, the way we work out problems is discussing them with adults. We get face to face. and we talk about all the things we need to talk about, and we work out to the solution. And then we go have a cup of tea or drink a glass of wine together because we leave it all on the table, right?
Yes.
So, I also wanted to make sure that they saw me as a role model. I have a daughter, and I want to make sure that she sees the ways that I engage myself in the community so that she can be inspired to do that. And it doesn't have to be professionally, but that she understands the importance of people doing that.
Wow, that's amazing. You're definitely doing a great work, and we do appreciate you for pushing this agenda. What would you say have been some of your biggest professional obstacles or challenges that you've had to overcome on this journey?
Yeah. Well, my answer to every question is white supremacy, right? Like, you can't be a strong, smart, beautiful Black woman and walk into every room and be treated like a strong, smart, beautiful Black woman, right? Like, there's just not a lot of spaces that are inclusive of that. And so I for sure would say from day one, right, that all of those types of obstacles were in my way professionally. Additionally, I lived in a bunch of different places, and just like anyone, I didn't know what I really wanted to do. I have an undergraduate degree in engineering. I ended up in a finance department, and then I went and got an MBA in finance and international business. I moved into a couple of positions, and then 9/11 happened, and it was one of those situations similar to the pandemic. There's a lot of news right now about people leaving their jobs, right? I don't want to be in a bad job if it's a hostile work environment or it requires too much time away from my family. I want to look for a better quality of life. And so I felt that way after 9/11, kind of like, if I have to die on the way to work, I want to really love it, and I'm not there. So I moved out to LA and lived and worked out there for several years, and met my husband. And then I came to Las Vegas. And so even when we came to Las Vegas, I was looking for a job, but as a woman, I was 6 months pregnant. And so if you look pregnant when you go into a job interview, you are less likely to get hired. I also moved to Las Vegas, and while my husband, is the mayor or whatever, knows a lot of people, I didn't have my family here. I didn't have a lot of people that I knew. I had to make friends from scratch and develop relationships and build a community for myself and my family. And so, in addition to that, I would say I've also moved a lot. So like having to build that community over and over again in different places is also an obstacle that I faced in my success, because when you move to different places, it's just like moving jobs, or even in your own job, moving up in the company, you just get surrounded with another group of people. So you got to find your allies. You got to figure out who your haters are, right? Like, who's going to keep you from getting to where you want to go. What groups of people are the ones that bring you joy or make you really want to be around them, as opposed to the ones who are always complaining or whatever else. So, it's just really going through that sifting process of relationships. And that can be emotionally draining too.
Yeah.
I'm also married. I have a son with special needs. He's nonverbal autistic. And so I have had to manage his care and education. He's 12 now and a rising 7th grader, but, he's still severely autistic, right? And so being able to find people who are understanding about that, who will allow him to be in the spaces with them, who, institutions that are providing the right kinds of services. So like doing that and trying to find a job in a new place or whatever, because most of the time I was moving because of my husband's job. So, not always being in control of where you're going to be, not always being in control of who you're going to be with. Those are also obstacles that put a wedge into your opportunity for success. But, I always say I bloom where I'm planted.
Yeah.
I find the resources in the soil that can help me grow and try to supplement with the things that are missing, from the people that I surround myself with in that community. Yeah. And that usually helps me blossom.
Beautiful journey. What a beautiful journey.
Wow. And what is something that you're most proud of yourself for having achieved?
Well, I don't know if all moms say their kids. Like, I really think my kids are dope. And, I have great parents and, and a great family, but I just really wanted to make sure that I did the right thing by my kids. And so I do really feel great about my ability to seek out the best opportunities for them to be successful and for them to thrive. But if I think about personally, I probably would say, even this last 90 days, I was on this weight loss journey with a new trainer, and it has absolutely transformed my life. Like, my ability to be dedicated, to follow the plan, all of those things. Just like we talked about at the very beginning, it happened with me changing my mindset, right? Like, one of the things that's a part of the program is no alcohol for the first 6 weeks. And so for somebody who was like coming home and drinking a bottle of wine every night or whatever after work, that seems like a pretty drastic change. So I just had to say, I mean, gosh, I'm going to be 47 this year. I've probably been drinking 30 years. If I take a few weeks off, maybe I get a couple years back. You know what I mean?
Amen.
And then I had to, get the rest of myself together, right? Like my spirit, right? Like my motivation, my willpower, all of those things that are not necessarily conscious, but just a part of your spirit journey, meditation, affirmations, you can do it. You will do it. Yeah. There's no reason that you need to have excuses, all of those kinds of things that just, that allow me, all my conversations I have with myself, to make sure that I'm moving forward. So yeah, I mean, I think that I ended up losing, so far, and I'm still on the journey, but so far I've lost 30 pounds. I've lost hundreds, I call it hundreds, but tens of inches. My skin is better, right? My nails are, everything is better. I can just feel the transformation throughout myself. And I had, several of the things in place to make that happen, but for sure, that's probably one of the things that I'm really proud of.
That's amazing. That is so awesome. Well, congratulations to you. Yes. Share the information, because I could go for a couple pounds down. So excellent. Please, Yindra, if you could let us know, what else would you like to share with the audience before our show ends?
Let's see. I guess I would say, you have the choice every day to make a change. And so no matter how bad a situation is, I've been in relationships with an abusive partner, whether it was physically or emotionally. I've been in, workspaces that just were hostile and not a place that was allowing me to be my best self. I've been in friendships and relationships that have not been productive or allowed me to thrive or allowed me to help them thrive, which is something I want to bring to a relationship. Yeah. And so you have the choice every day to say no, to someone, or say yes to something else. And no matter how bad the rut is, the minute that you say no, it stops. Yeah. So I think that's really important for people to remember, sort of the power of those boundaries, of setting it and not feeling like you're being judged because of it, not being worried about what other people think. If it's good for you, then it's good for you.
Okay. Well, those are wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing. If you could also share with our listeners how they can find you online.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram at @Dixon, or you can also follow MPower 360 at MPOWER_360. I'm also on Twitter as Twindra, and then MPower has Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm sure some other stuff.
Absolutely. Yindra Dixon, thank you so much for joining us.
It has been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. Have a wonderful week.
Absolutely. So we want to thank you for listening to us and joining us on this 5-star day. We believe in you. We believe that you're going to have a more 5-star life starting right now.
Right now, we know that you could have been anywhere, but you chose to be right here with us. So for that, we thank you. And we look forward to seeing you on Facebook at 5-Star Living Show and joining the 5-Star Living Show Inner Circle. Remember to laugh more and love more while taking care of your mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely. The 5-Star Living Show is sponsored in part by Flossie Flicks Photography, Monickie.com, Flossie Locks, and Meditate with Mo. Until next time, keep 5-star living.
5-Star Living, and show us some love by subscribing on YouTube. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.